wear it at TOC, and I was like, okay. And then 2 days later, I show up, and I'm like, here it is, and he's like, I was definitely joking.
Well, yeah.
And I was like,
I was joking too when I read it.
yeah, Court just laughed at me. Like, I met Court and Elise in the.
Have you checked
Jason?
Jason?
You're like,
Yeah,
yeah,
we're
we're Court just saw me
Is
and
it?
laugh.
He's over, and he's feeling good. Yeah.
I'm setting up the email chain right now.
Can you include science on Merck science debate element?
Yeah.
There, thank you.
That's 2 papers.
Keyshawn42@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Keyshawn, you want any more pizza? I can.
No, not now.
Okay.
You see the same one as on the paradigm.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Alright, I sent it.
Sorry, just give me 1 second.
Do you mind if I record this now?
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I just get it on my recording as well.
that's fair. Yeah, we probably won't upload until it's
Yeah.
over, so then it's.
They will record.
Only on
Not
recordings.
okay. Oh, yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Huh?
Okay, you good?
Almost.
Oh, okay, never mind.
They close the door.
I'm ready.
I was letting it breathe for a while.
You don't need that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Let's see you again.
Yeah.
Advantage 1 is fumigation. U.S. support is pressuring Colombia into aerial fumigation. It conclusively is negative environmental effects witness PC-18. Particularly fumigation is direct sensitivity attack those factors in the active with the that's very detrimental health and environmental impacts are very common to regarding fumigation, soil monitoring, regular state climate, different over radar, spraying up the herbicides, especially in many communities, and fumigation on sensitive PC like a result of violence. ADPs may help, but air eradication fails. You 17. Trump said about bringing your friend that only talking about the seven and some said he's so far that the way to communication that the people follow the companies not releasing the PC ministry and how to the course and planning to take advantage of partners is looking finding views and also use communication finding out protocol changes they were in authoritarianism is on the rise in Colombia now co-rule of law to lead before when he said there's something in the life of companies of law to the government house that they have no representative rule law subjected by law which is not a rule law and taking over power to conserving advantage 2 is counterproducts is based on the myth control of drugs instead of addressing social problem solutions that attempt to solve structural issues are due to fail on the military agency enforcer has what the court. Real-time images, they must have seen them before states have survived that and comes to fighting all their people to prevent and regime software and distribution where it's depending on control. Going to become dependent on drug capital for the cause that a lot of agriculture that consider on about it, lost also cultural knowledge and Chinese groups and confusion more than person for every vulnerable to doing first legal countries that return countries and power with the sea. Those time use of the two day PC distribution military strategy dollar return back to agriculture drugs to more than able and drugs to larger return to security design for the governmental actors with military judgment with the regarding APs and counter narcotics is conclusively an effective supply side attempts at eradication fail because accounting for social factors is key. Restaurants are 6. And physical vision of green cross letters also apply to recognition conversations while streaming that. Like the term crop ability is easy to recognize can be variable and increase the instructions on because leading to connection of that. Military to term production ability to ability to reduction into the losing of that. Use multi reduction by time scholars creating 17 degrees of over time and US counter narcotics is used to commit sexual violence against women and he stumbled after creates his bound grants his team. 6 women are gender, I think the Chinese thing like reaching sexual violence. Then as a result of that militarization that's really about the against women and sexual violence and military charge sexual violence and arrested because they commit to diplomatic because of its social and social law and use power plan. The United States ought to provide military counter-driving drug introduction to authoritarian regimes in Latin America and the Caribbean. Solvency. Military counter-products for counter-driving social office by the Colombian government and legitimate back targets to actually solve violence. Rose 1-3. Majority of the military system and the military sector and civilian institutions military to store cops institutions military is encouraging them to replace government that's only civilian institutions and government recognized legitimacy and ability to carry policy goals and civilian institutions and demand nephews when carrying military running to critical future practice materials and practically the drug control campaign and getting rid of military counter-narcotics allows economic programs to fulfill their functions and bolsters the economies of countries enough so that people no longer have to rely on chemical cultivation to survive. That's all the port. Unless it's provided close income technology passport projects like that, but education requirements like PCCs will be getting governments mainly short funds, use running some other, but development can be ready to deploy military central military shifters that either promote sustainable development and ending military counter-narcotics results in a redirection of social support and empirical analysis outside of 15. Due to this ability to find the majority of the military APR, working given direction and countries to be allocated to social concepts for building constitution, social and conservation programs, framing. Framing matters just as much as real demand for policy making and reproduce violence, which means counterplan, obtaining benefits, cancel that, test rules of 4. Limits usage of the application of military non-military problems, accusation, cost of laws, and drug costs, and representing medication, medium, and salaries to respond to that. With the relevant national security finance, against the services to increase military power, increasing military, military and communication such as US as anything investing in and training our support for the right force education, as long as it's real estate and ownership, continues to major policy there. This is after so we talk in the policy of reproducing social security among nations. And our impact outweighs in probability in magnitude. Risk assessment is a piece of long-term bias for dramatic masculinity to discount the severity of everyday level of violence and ensuring marginalized population. 1396. Links to this successors and the cost of all things protection on the right value, trying to confidence to the size of the formula, and actually measures to research and progression as even after pressure data is on the size from inside significant politicians or even more intelligent, as a generic advice or people follow from control, but in place of the public because they control institution having inside individual harvey capacities of the these countries will black and the country of the developed countries. It actually will use better management to see the second has about something more harmful, but it has to look as has broken into your nor can you harm down ministry to increase in public health, which has even been the shape of the facing injury, take something from our which means more than exact fatalities. And her fair view of war to continue. Gender violence is intricately intertwined with war, best social science side of attack. 14. Masculine orders are important to one of these talking with and correlation between masculine gender intensities as well as kind of these things. I'm getting more say danger if you competence and also which ones equals to career and support police cause out using biology and biology and culture interaction between culture biology and moral and cultural longitude and social crossly connection between the more kind of using the more violence opportunity to military violence while choosing government abilities to advancing intertwined and sexual violence is genocidal and habits that continue. Good sense of systemic impacts is key since patriarchal war games makes violence inevitable. Chapter 9. Peace and implicitly finds acts and violent conflict and human loss control self for the unleashes and touch with word peace and harmony shadow living and pathological that don't security to the from the project factors of self survival country violence security as that security to the militarization and how it's not like some question about labs like you're using and sign of concerns about security of the chance of potential safety for security to as a last point as well as on the number of mass and even movable peace more level as security is not some bubble that that assumption is that security minimum concept against the representing is that mass and even that with violence global logic and household example about all the cases of violence ever deal with ideas about about security violence trust you just with it because I'm trying to mess with you family living because we're being separated from mere balance that for being for social behavior that unfortunately sometimes you know demonstration will public property investigation will skills and protecting order to be every kind of thing you don't even know where you're about to feel by such ways and metrics and justification of policy matter just as much and use resolve the raising masculine or risk capitals are anti-capable so the ethical demands of the plan in lieu of fact. Different to also mean go to gender results mean that ensure gender means never because of the family and you can reveal also rather than the one of the gender factor the solution for the percent of housing rapid approaching gap only there are also mean issues for all that you need more change and to be subtle to have the family school we want to know tanks like more subtle and goals in the distribution of marginalized which we do gender open family gender near for these so it's all together.
Okay. Are you ready for the process?
Yeah.
Chris, Alright. The plan ends our counter-narcotics operations in Colombia, yes?
Military counter-drug and drug interdiction in Latin America, in authoritarian regimes in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Okay, does that include like Honduras and like the other countries there?
We will defend authoritarian regimes as defined by evidence. So we will get into a debate over what an authoritarian regime has for evidence, similar to how if you were to read an agent counterclaim, you'd have to read the project
Is there but for now, do you have a list of authoritarian regimes that the plan definitively defends?
So we determine that based off of evidence. Our first advantage is about Colombia exclusively, and our second advantage is just about counter.
So to clarify, based on things you could read in the 1AR, you can change which countries the plan affects.
Well, so our argument is that the NC, well, so first of all, if I wanted to define which countries the plan affects, I would basically just pick like the Bahamas and Barbuda and Antigua, so you'd know ground. Our argument is that it's better for the negative when you get to read definitions of what an authoritarian regime is.
Okay, but for sure you defend Colombia?
Yeah, we'll defend Colombia.
Okay, anything else you want to tell me about which countries you defend?
We'll defend authoritarian regimes.
Okay, anything that can be that. Alright, that sounds good.
It's defined per evidence.
The current programs in Colombia, you end those?
For military counter-drug and drug interdiction.
Okay, what are those?
So, in the first advantage, this is talking about aerial fumigation. So this is the usage of things like helicopters and drones to fly over. We both provide drones and helicopters, and we also train pilots inside of Colombia to do the fumigation. So we end that program.
That's alright.
We say that things like economic development programs are good.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's where our solvency is derived from.
Sure. The framing, the masculinity is sort of like root cause of war. What's masculinity?
So the argument here is things like hypermasculinity, specifically in IR, is what our evidence is talking about. It's the ways that certain nation states act aggressive towards other nation states.
Why call that aggressiveness masculinity?
Well, so we say that it's a social division that occurs. So the social world codes onto men, for example, that they are more aggressive. Our argument is that it is good to break down those binaries. However,
Wait,
for the
men are
purposes
more
of the ways
aggressive?
that states are coded,
Men
no,
are more
no,
aggressive?
no, obviously not. Women are not more inherently peaceful. Men are not inherently aggressive.
Okay.
Our argument is that this is the way that society codes things. It is a social continuum argument. We say that because society codes it as such.
Hey, so what makes someone a man?
Whoever wants to define themselves as
Okay,
a man. Not me to
Is
say
everyone
that
who identifies
Ishak,
himself?
I think you're.
No, I understand.
No, you're not understanding. We're not making a definition of what is man, what is women. You're not saying any of those. We're saying that the ways that masculinity is coded within society.
What is the
exist as
relationship
such.
between masculinity and being a man then? Why is the words linguistic?
No, we are talking about hypermasculinity in IR. They are distinct from talking about men on the individual social level.
Okay, that makes sense. I guess the last question I have is the fumigation advantage.
Yeah.
It cites Trump is pressuring the president to do these things.
They already resumed aerial fumigation.
Okay, why does ending military aid resolve Trump pressuring the president into doing it?
Well, so we end military aid. Aerial fumigation is a part of military aid. So Trump can't be on it.
A little.
Okay.
Okay, stop right. It's 47 seconds. The order is
So you've got 13 left.
6. The framing page. Fumigation. Counter narcotics.
6.
Yeah. Possibly 5, but we'll see.
6. The framing page fumigation counter narcotics.
Yeah. We'll put it out.
Okay.
We know it.
I haven't got it yet. I just got it.
You?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. You.
Yeah, it's open. Alright.
Cool. Everyone. Yeah. The actions specify what countries the entities which that's key to stable. One is key to stable ground and pre-ground preparation. We don't have no idea what the countries the affirmative defense and especially in cross-sex. They literally won't tell us what countries defend. Read definitions. Obviously, does not solve our offense because they can read any definition for any country and people just randomly call things authoritarian and totalitarian all the time. It's also key to robust debates about whether those are topical or not because if the affirmative defends them, they have to have a defense of them and negative can read T violations against it. Otherwise, the affirmative shifts to advocacy no matter what definition. When you have forced the judge to decide what the affirmative advocacy is, which obviously they on presumption because you literally don't know what the countries have planned. The only one they defend is Colombia, which is obviously ludicrous because they in the one will tack on countries to solvency to Colombia and say which ones are authoritarian, which breaks the negative pressure or ridiculous and let's say specify what country. Next one. Military aid is bilateral military loans and grants, counter narcotics, S&G solvent at all level. We define military as bilateral loans and grants measure negotiations for counter narcotics. Counter narcotics are non-military security assistance. Mike right. AG is military as non-military security, which comes out of narcotic programs. GG. Colombia gets currently 0 counter drug and introduction military aid, but they do get $200 million a year in international narcotics control law enforcement, which they don't solve. I've inserted the screenshot for the security system monitor. That's not T. U.S. Bloomberg. 18 economic assistance, international narcotics and law enforcement. They should hold a plan text. don't hold the plan text in a vacuum. If your evidence is talking about ending all law on counter-narcotics to Colombia, we only make a T violations based on what the plan does, and obviously it would end the program. 2 limits or model just like anything from troop humanitarian security systems, general money, use for military purpose. Only this definition creates a reasonable case list for aid. Rex predictability makes program possible. They expect the right of general links to financing. Limits key to reverse private engagement. But because the entire round is competing in terms 1, reasonability, self-term, arbitrary, and arbitrary bias judgment. They have to impose their interpretation of what's reasonable. 2 leads to selecting the best interpretation of the facts and spread guys how we prep in the round that's weakest and making the best interpretation of it. Next one. The executive branch of the United States ought to immediately end military counter-drug and drug introduction for Puerto Rico, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Issue, publicizing, enforcing executive order, implementing this right, and publicizing its unlawful office of legal counsel. Military disrupted the DoD and State Departments. I shouldn't have to read a card for this, but it's definitely the case, Ryan. 16. Depending on which Congress was serving the autonomy, defense authorization, global economic government control over programs, federal flex, does not have no practice, defense department, often executes even programs that the State Department authorities. The OLC is durable and binding. Morrison. 10. OLC advice is binding within the executive. OLC is legal advice over civil law. We have national binding as OLC to make sure to serve an analogy. Public notice that decision created legitimacy. OLC shall legal advice to clients and not internalize and apply matter only present like merit especially great difference. It competes one agents repeated dissent counterpunts and like story. If they didn't expect they should be stuck with Congress. 8 is ground. Congress sees code on ground and predictability agenda, war politics, public powers, deference, and mechanism. Counterpunts were in Congress. I should get links because they were intentionally being the plan text. P1 is pre-round prep. If they didn't put in the plan text, I should get to pick the actor since pre-round prep is determined on the actor. I think the plan would have 2 Congresses normal means 8 power of the first BBC. 18 years industry cut off for and holding the persons of Congress and the final Senate for an budget. Congress to military purpose of opposition with the president. Disagreements are working informally. They are on conflict of each other and standing the Supreme Court. B1 is Leahy law. The wording of the topic is about whether to cut aid based on a regime's authoritarianism. Those predictable interpretation as a Leahy law, since that's what it was literally meant to do in the only indirect today is Congress. C. Damning proves the most recent attempt to cut military aid was a congressional decision. Congressional containment of military does war power since international signal. It won't happen now because they can't overcome the veto Yemen proves merger. 19. Congress is expected to make on a president challenge Trump's already with right country calling for the innovative solitary power which would bomb and they refueling all to support intelligence and special ops. They would force country and running executive power uses vetoes unlike the events can muster 2/3 majority record override but ready to move greatly. Democratic and after the passage of Congress to use war powers over the president's power cannot underestimate the historic impact of report. And to be careful watching what Congress does. That vote chambers would be acting such statement that will describe Congress everything Congress must handle past congressional attempts that failed because of war powers. Ensures executive control over foreign policy in the context of military is plenary and executive now. Miller. 12. The latest motion by the executive against congressional attempts to make president of war power as war powers will switch to the executive constantly provided amendments to challenge about the federal judges of the U.S. diplomacy as the executive center control over micro operations and military and global legislature executive issue of congressional acquiescence and judicial tolerance. Congress had little room to executive worst powers. Programs cut the card there. What is? Sorry. Pause. Cry for a second. In my doc, I must have backspaced so there's an evidence issue where the next card got put into the other card. Is the Zypher card separate?
Why are you pausing? You can just.
Because I thought it might have been an evidence issue. I didn't
No,
want the
show it
cards
to
to
me
be misrepresented.
after.
Okay. I think it's good. Foreign policy meddling goes nuclear, key to speed, and collapses to turn Zetberg. 4. Congress had little no review of these things to work. Congress would have the presidency, which cut it up, and powers of action, authority, president's crucial foreign policy, where you can actually evaluate threats and mobiles, resource speed and energy, defense, superior, any other range, we always get to oppose state, but accused forces in the main line, was instantly, whether it's system, to on race, because they don't say, posting foreign authors, who look like, system, returns, and makes pretty likely. Next one. The United States ought to maintain military aid to the Joint Task Force, Robin, Honduras, and Hunter, and the United States ought not provide any meal of the ground or non drug and introduction military aid to third regions of Latin America and the Caribbean. Meyer, 1800s, under the base of U.S. operation, Joint Task Force, for citizen safety and drug trafficking, the GTF, involved military training against the U.S. counterterrorism intelligence operations in the aftermath of hurricane. Use for extends specific relief and reconstruction support activities, disaster medical humanitarian assistance, counter-narcotics operation. The benefit doesn't have to be used to counterpunch the whole weapons, drug trafficking, the end of it, drug safety, painful overdoses, and cartels lead to more violence in Trent's case. Meyer, 18. GD provides counter-narcotics assistance to Honduras, the equipment that reaches intelligence security forces and specialized training U.S. forces of awareness and training Honduras duty plan to provide Honduras with $500 million for 18 Honduras with high-level drug Congress to spend all incredible solution to Honduras government has extra to narcotics drug without the turn of the U.S. authorities. Honduras has slipped into the third case and has go use military to direct cause of transition to Riga. 2-9 advanced re-election of the crisis for government U.S. registry supporting Honduras armed forces, corruption programs, all that stuff. Country passive for currency for people that to destroy and the United States was up to the military could be national pandemic elections Honduras and every names and power. One theory skewed to the affirmative points time 2 that's 7 minutes and we only have 6 on the key point is that the responses to the TOR and the TOR to the counter interpretation will definitely be it means one theory had requires judge intervention implications. One, you should drop the theory because you drop the argument because it means you're not intervening on theory. B point, you should reasonability if intervention is inevitable in theory, then you drop the intervening but it makes LD theory less asinine. C.1 theory is not legit, not abuse and you can't endorse it. Next one. Top of the authoritarian regimes on the list listed in the EIU, democracy and disauthoritarian regimes have been sort of listed in the documents. The EIU, but negative clear on in the Sanford necessary for TAC to dictate grand preparation, predictability, Afghan regimes, arbitrary date, and self-serving. Only EIU gives a list of authoritarian regimes and differentiation between preparation and hybrid regimes, which doesn't have much to do with clear boundary for prep. Colombia violates because it's not on the list. The case at the framing. 1, don't evaluate framing the vacuum of violence operates along to continue and moving account consults 90% as well 90% as well as used for negative non-chance mass violence. 2 talks on generic epistemology does which five scenarios and they should disprove into specific contestation. No choose for affirmative non-specificity. 3 existing extinctionalities a point that forecloses the ability for anyone to find meaning and interest of value in their own lives. If they're right about their framing, it's unethical to make a decision for millions and trillions of people that could potentially exist in the future and that life is not lived, especially when this physical offense no violence that affirmative would deny people world structural violence. Their framing is wrong and the people are decided to obviously disprove the framework. The advantage of the TOC circumvention, DoD secrecy and counter drug utterance are included in the affirmative minor. And Garcia 19, execution of drug introduction, counter-drug activities, and lack of country-by-country data activities, FIS, security operation, make it difficult to assess SOBs, activities, plan activities, lack of information, intercongressional concerns, of practice, shape in the U.S. system, Latin America, and the Caribbean. Plan filed the plan says, all which is a moral statement, but doesn't say should, which means they don't get to feel the affirmative, which means the affirmative doesn't have any good presumption. The fumigation advantage, they don't solve it, we'll go through their evidence. A is strong pressure, the heel still flowing to cover, fumigate, double confirmation, but then B point, the cocoa, their evidence agrees that witness piece evidence have been sort of rehealing the doctor, says Trump admission to read through the approach of the Colombian government to crack down on cocoa production. Their evidence ends in it says the Colombian government, which uses the counter narcotics advantage. They solve none of this, it's not about US aid. They want to see Hessler is clear about domestic Colombian domestic policy, and the size 4 font says job loss makes it inevitable. The blue highlighting is in the document, and the second, the Ross evidence is about it's about U.S. production of cocoa, which they obviously don't solve. The blue highlighting is also in the document. It says C2, decrease cocoa production. Third, the last part is about bases. The plan just does not end bases. The brown evidence is increase in force production, which happened around U.S. military bases. The plan obviously doesn't end bases because it's not military aid. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Will you send out the cut and the doc with whatever?
Did I mark your card?
What?
Did I mark your card?
Yeah. You marked the parts.
I inserted the rehighlighting of yours.
No, you marked.
Oh, I did. I definitely did. You were so right. My bad. Okay, remember when I said that the cards combined? I marked it at.
Just send me whatever you read.
I'll send exactly what I read.
Okay. Opening. Okay. Are you ready? Status of everything?
The Congress counterplan, the exec counterplan is, both the counterplans are conditional.
Okay, got it. The military aid counterplan, how does the executive end military aid?
They just stopped giving it.
The executive has control over this?
The counter-narcotic stuff is all DoD, yeah.
Okay, then I guess the DoD, what part of so it's the DoD the one that takes the action?
The DoD and the State Department and all of their programs. The counterplan, that's that the executive just stops all the counter-narcotics programs.
Okay, that's fine.
And then there's also an OLC plank if you want me to explain what that is.
Yeah, can you explain the OLC plank?
Yeah, the Office of Legal Counsel issues a memorandum saying that the programs that the plan describes are illegal.
Okay, and that's just to generate so that the executive can do it?
It doesn't generate, the executive can do it no matter what. This is another thing that makes it, it makes it illegal for them.
The Honduras pick, what are we currently doing inside of Honduras?
There's a bunch of things, but in the JTF provides a bunch of assistance and assists with counter-narcotics. The PIC only maintains Joint Task Force Bravo in Honduras.
Okay, what are examples of good things that we've done inside of Honduras?
Sure, so there was a cartel where we worked with local Honduras officials to oust that cartel, and Renee gets control over.
Has it done anything to prevent counter-narcotics from occurring?
What do you mean, narcotics or counter-narcotics?
Has it done anything to prevent drug production? Do you have evidence that says that?
Yeah, the second piece of evidence says they train and work with the Tigers unit of Honduras, and it says that they've apprehended a number of high-level drug traffickers and dismantled.
But where does it say that drug production is decreased in Honduras?
So this is the act framing that's just drug production isn't what's bad, drugs aren't bad. The net benefit is that the people that run the cartels, the high-level drug traffickers and their criminal organizations, cause a bunch of violence. So dismantling them is obviously good.
Okay. The net benefit to the exec counterplan is just war powers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. The military aid topicality shell, it says that it's in the context of economic aid, so it says that the measure, it says the measure excludes military assistance that's given for economic programs and for counter-narcotics. It's talking about U.S. aid counter-narcotics. Why does this apply to the DoD counter-narcotics?
Because, so aid is given, so the evidence says that they define military aid through what the Green Book lists under military aid, and the Green Book does not list sort of military
Wait, no,
related
this is about the
measures.
U.S. aid, correct? Because that's what the citation says.
No, it says as well as commercial military.
But it's in the brackets of U.S. aid. It's
Where?
the parentheses at the very end of the sentence that you didn't
Yeah,
highlight.
yeah, it's as reported by USAID through overseas language.
Correct, so it's as reported by USAID,
Yeah,
correct?
Green Book still
Okay.
still would list what the DoD does.
That's fine.
That's what the Green Book is. It's a
The
literal measure
like
of things
thing that you
spend on.
inserted indicates that foreign military financing, and we currently give them tons of money. Why is this not considered military aid?
Foreign military financing.
Under your interpretation, it says that's included in
So
such a Green
the
Book.
plan doesn't end that. You said the plan ends the drug interdiction stuff, which we give 0. Like the words you said in cross-text were like, we end drug interdiction in Colombia. We give none of that to Colombia. All of the drug stuff that we do in Colombia is the thing that's not military.
Okay, I'm sending.
Oh, okay.
Okay, it's in send. I'll tell you the order whenever you're ready.
What is it?
It'll be the 1AC, T authoritarian, the spec shell, the military aid shell, the executive action counter plan, the Honduras thing.
Cool. Thank you.
Let's do the board plan.
Yeah. Okay. It'll be the 1AC top down in the order of the 1NC. So it'll go framing, then that advantage itself, but it's going to start with a little overview. Then it will go TEIU, spec, military aid, executive, Honduras. Okay. Is anyone not ready? Okay. Economic conditions force farmers to cultivate cocoa to survive. The actual drug by increasing cutting direct negate any military interference with that aid, actually helping farmers. The line by line, the framework. Yes, I value it for framing in a vacuum, and it's an reason as to why you should vote for feminine policies and not have masculine ones. We are critiquing the extent that applies. The generic epistemology and natural, specifically negative, they said that. And extinction out where's no, don't vote on extinction in a vacuum. Ethics always all just said, do social service not communities, the great colonial moment without consequences. Don't suspend concerns of a rape or fabricated extinction attack, fight to restore critical sentiment of the doctrine. Make my heritage reality. The case, the circumvention argument doesn't apply. Durable field is able to solve this. We include inside of military aid. The plain flaw argument doesn't apply. It doesn't apply. The legislature to be able to fix. We also said we feel it inside of process. Next argument about how we don't solve. Yes, we do. It's a part of military aid. We will address that more. The Trump pressure obviously does. Fumigation is considered military aid, which means that we end counter narcotics. Yes, we do solve all of it. The Hesser evidence says that given that we allow for economic programs to start being successful, that is the reason that's why we solve. Now, the T. One counter-strategy downstairs by Charlotte Freedom has route framed by Freedom House. A public Freedom House for transaction advisor. Freedom House is learning communication to have an operator in the government. B. There's a few solid to pass a turn reading house. Wait or not that. He's going to learn the reason that we're using the condition that becomes like Freedom House by soldier and the Freedom House by people. C. We need to love is a part of Freedom reading. 2. It's 80 cents for authors using briefing will probably because they'll the law. The average doesn't count for this. B. If it use that metric is that it uses racist policy for never counter. It uses racist policy and also overinflates that democratic is a certain regime. C is a combination of story types of regimes that solitary story and love it. Democratic regime house regimes and and C is called Republicans that 13 American parties just won elections and policy to lead rule for and creation that was also for 2018 others in the first cut the card after affirmative defense. A one is about people for regimes that year to be part of the free house and to be functional and territory politics and people are all needing to choose a small limit on topic need ground versus Latin America. Spec one we need to specify counterclocks and region we fight 2 counters battles that's why we all know we did. A 3 offense. A in regress they can access that anything as a basic resolution means they move goalposts even about the shelter and add new conditions. Those agents are arbitrary and self-serving. B turns ground loss. The act was recommended for countries to get out of links countries to reach down their arguments. 4 defense. A states and planning checks and plans as also human beings Latin American Caribbean. They can redefinition that. T 5 for stability. That only defense over the only inside to go T and keep making goalposts. Coast topic education forces teams to run the case and trying to defend the topic. Military aid. 1 we meet our access counter narcotics on military aid is good. We don't defend any of it. That's the US aid stuff. 2 counter back and defend any check military aid. There's a new agreement about all of that. Temporary agreement is not Congress is only 3 communication counts as a part of military aid practice when it's representative as a 2 US military office of military training. 4 often say a little bit now. Only military are on transfer concealed and they can also cover generic ideas and cost account. B talk issue counterparts in order to get to Southern American student entire continent. Apples B 5 months into the TOC topic. And B says C is that they don't have the thing that they inserted is that it says that we haven't accounted for the money that we've given to them yet, but not that we haven't given them money at all. 4 defense. A no limits officer. 5 times military listen agreement. This is money, B generous, counterparts, conditions here, politics fill in and ground for all last. And executive action counterplan. Both in time for kicking out distance and calculates for critique, street masculinity with ground have account before they say top level to question our performance, which affects us as people instead of just thinking about our arguments. Condo is voting to reciprocity the adjectives, multiple rest of the balancers of time and 20 yard, making blocks by 1 inch in the 2 hours, leaving massive China damage. Now spend longer between K and me. The eventually have good positions. Case to be stats and the counterplan, not shake reality, security threats, require multi solutions, the counterplan, and other drug policies. We create military violence and can't solve because of the pressures, ignorance, and social issues that force farmers to cultivate coca. That's Hezbollah, firm to vote, or bring to the counterplan. We didn't second after our interest to get links to the USFG data sets, but not counterplan competition. Only Trump thinks he can do this. Let's agree. Adam 115 that Trump thinks he can do it. Content will be most functionally and technically competitive. This means that content must do something given the planet and revert to the planet. Be result of the best opportunities. It doesn't mean given the best opportunity cost. Always on something with full content of work. See just price for the content is not competitive. This design doesn't cost make sense. As far as rule of travel, trees communities and absolutely also drone strikes around. Now the Pixar and table shooting masculinity, steal the labor of women, trade is under the belt. Pixar running speed artificially inflate bad business by capturing the case makes African possible later. Then I'm direct the team to deterrence. Also, one of your theory is legitimate because it's only within being able to have a check on abuse of that. So like road site means against recommended use general. Also the fact that Colombia, the Honduras narcotics doesn't end up solving it. They don't solve anything like drug production increases. They just result in a worse campaign strategy that results in them being spread out across time, which means that it actually increases violence inside of Honduras. That's also one you see framing evidence and then solving evidence. One of your theory is legitimate to keep the track of abuse and also time to proves that we should get one of our theory in order to be able to respond to abusive strategies.
Alright.
Use 413.
Yeah, so I'm just getting all the papers. So starting now. Reasons to reject the team are condo, both legit, both like the theory of
Strategic
strategic
masculinity and
then
voting
Pix.
issue. Picks are an example of strategic masculinity. Picks are a voting issue.
Okay. bad, the exec counterplan, then the framing, then the advantage.
Picks bad, the exact counterplan,
Yeah.
the framing, and then the advantage.
And I'll let you know when I'll do conduit, just because, like,
Okay, that's
I
fine.
want to know based on the other stuff, like how much time I spent on that. Okay. Alright, everyone ready?
No, give me a second. Are you reading anything?
Nothing, like no cards.
Okay. Then, yeah, I'm ready.
Strategic masculinity won this role as a neoliberal model of speech as intellectual property and design because the judge voting affirmative would also be skewing their liberal to the negative, and the negative has to include some part of the affirmative performance because the affirmative performance has impression bad, the negative would have to say impression good, which is necessary. A violent model of debate, there's no principal distinction between picking out of racism and picking out of other parts of the affirmative, not unique, the affirmative read authors and their performances, not all of their own. It's a question of decision making. The pick isn't just saying that I should win because Jay did work, but it's just saying that we're refining as recognizing the affirmative based on the presentation of the affirmative debate as an adversarial activity in which we clear robust analysis. Picks bad with a counter interpretation that can be in one pick, one ground. Peter picks a test on critical affirmative, that's why this nuance of one is solvable. Picks ensure by ensuring I can carve down critical elements. Choose topic that solves the advocate they destroy coordinate ground and central. Topic 3 is that picks focus in a singular instead of spreading ourselves into sideways breath. When there was real policy discussion about whether one policy proposal will be good, bad, not it doesn't be what. Future unsolved because after really about talking about an issue around to go that the picks back word to the 1AR was nonsense. You should hold the line on the words you heard JS say in the 1AR. You should not backcheck the doc for the warrant in their picks bad argument, but just the like random half sentence thing you heard, which means you cannot go for a 2AR entirely on picks bad. Also on the 1AR theory hedge, they read 1AR theory legitimate, but conceded even if 1AR theory is illegitimate because of things like judge intervention and forced judge intervention, that's a reason to drop the argument on 1AR theory, which means they conceded drop the arg for picks, which means they cannot go for picks bad. And it's a reason to stick us with a counterplan on conditionality because that would be dropping the conditionality portion of the counterplan. If they conceded drop the arg on the theory hedge proper, they're not going for any theory in the 2AR. The counterplan. Strategic masculinity here is also ludicrous. It's not a question of not holding me accountable for anything I say. If I say something like slur or something, you should obviously hold me accountable. But this is more a question of decision making. We make decisions using conditionality because we can logically, the status quo is always a logical option, which is not the same thing as not being held accountable for. It's just in the model of decision making about whether the plan is a good idea. We can kick it out. See, I'll do condo proper, but the strategic masculinity thing is obviously just not really an argument. The counterplan, it's also 100% of the case. All of counter-narcotics is done for the DoD. Their evidence talks about DoD and State Department measures and various programs. The drug interdiction stuff is launched underneath the DoD, which means the counterplan does two things. One, it has the executive cut all of that, which means all of the DoD would just stop all of these programs. And two, and obviously establish an office of legal counsel opinion that resolves all of that. Their argument solves deficits already explained whatsoever. The counterplan solves the whole case. We should the OLC evidence is also really good. It creates a binding legal statute that the executive must provide, which means there's no shot of circumventing the line by line. You say rep shape the dissent. You have not explained why the dissent is a form of strategic masculinity. You just have a framing argument, but if it's not specific, then it doesn't matter. It doesn't shape it. You should be able to explain these arguments after the 1AR. They're just saying the counterplan can't solve because the dissent might have been slightly masculine. They have to win how that results in circumvention of a counterplan that literally here it's binding precedent for the executive to not result in any of this. They have not applied it to how it circumvents the exec counterplan. The permutation we only specify for dissent. That's obviously ludicrous. They conceded the entirety of the 1 and C spec shell. It's key to stable ground, and they've conceded that Congress's normal means, which means that at least gives us counterplans, because even if they won't specify for counterplans, the normal means is Congress, which means they have to defend the counterplans independently, which means the affirmative is definitively Congress. That is the BBC evidence that they've conceded. It's key to ground that always. They just said they have no warrant for why it's a beneficial model for the only spec U.S. cheese. The Adam Lipton evidence is in the wrong context. It's about Trump threatening to cut foreign aid programs that Congress can appropriate money to, and they said that Congress has the power of the purse. Yes, Congress has the power of the purse, but Congress appropriates funds to the executive. The executive then uses these funds in counter-narcotics programs, and then the counterplan has the executive stop using the funds. It's in the wrong context, and it obviously means that the counterplan solves the entirety of the case. Also, Trump literally did the thing the card says that he couldn't do, like a couple days after. The card says that he couldn't cut aid to those countries, and then he totally did, and then Fox News called them Mexican countries for some reason. I know you read the news, and I know you remember this happening. Trump literally did the thing that the card is saying that he could not do, which means obviously the counterplan solves it. Even if he couldn't do that, it's in the wrong context, because counter-narcotics are all DoD and State Department and executive operations, which can see the textual competition is bad. It allows the affirmative to just put the words United States in the plan and then permit any counterplan or no link any dissent based on the text of that. We don't have to remove words in the plan. We have to make it compete based on our interpretation of what I see. Congress has normal means that they have to defend that. Obviously, plans should have more things than just like what's in the words of the plan text, because if the words of the plan text are just like the United States should stop doing this, the plan obviously includes a process by which they stop doing that. We can read counterplans and dissent based on that. This argument wasn't explained on the surface, so they don't give permutation to the counterplan because it would be severance and rewrite normal means that Congress is that. That controls the entire thing. It's the dissent. Whoopsies, the 1AR was like 2 words on a dissent that has an enormous impact, and turns out was the case. 1, foreign policy meddling solves a whole lot of war and violence, which turns all of their approximate impacts because war creates the conditions that make all of their stuff inevitable. B point is that it has key to the nuclear deterrence argument, which says that we would be able to, the dissent's key to deterrence, and the other news would the line on the dissent, they say courts already pound the PQD. Wrong dissent that we're reading with the exact counterpoint. We read PQD at the beginning of the topic. This is war powers. PQD is a court doctrine that the court can't rule over. War powers says Congress can't rule over the executive because it would crush the executive for war powers. The next argument just was the words drone strikes or the card they forgot to read, so it obviously doesn't apply. The dissent was 100% conceded. The net benefit obviously always any risk of assault. He doesn't because they like literally dropped the dissent, which means no matter. Condo proper. Condo's good. 1 was education. 8 is experimentation. Condo less than negative. 0 and learn from new strategies. Absent content, negative, and structure, research, literature, pre-round clashing, group oppositions, and strategies that are in their comprehensive. The results of stale repetitive debates were skilled, and stagnated. Systemic has a strong incentive to read the same arguments every debate. It's like if I can't read 2 counterpoints because I just picked the one that's I think I'm more comfortable with, which creates skills decision making. Key point is decision making skills, all robust decision making. Life goes through hypothesis testing. We take actions in every domain by considering what other actions we are taking, and course go through the present consequences. The average condo forces the one answer be their best responses. The line by line on condo. 1 is terminal defense. Every argument is conditional. Every theory that RBI and the debater's expert is going to go for every argument. B point 2. Current condo's key to reciprocity. After multiple runs on each axis, they function get a limited condo. 3. Fairness keys are inevitable. Every debate's argument they give one side an advantage. Internal impact theory is on 8. 4 aerodynamic one theory. The two against framing. The last words I can't predict the easier to value new two weighings or turns. 6. 5th. Both fairness and education matters. 0 voting comparison. The two weighing is illegitimate. The one had the opportunity to weigh and it didn't. 6. Condo forces the one here to read its best responses and against all of the counterparts, and 1 is he preemption solves most of their offense. The case on the framing. 2 every year arguments on the framing. You should have when you drop you have to be specific. If you haven't done any specific application of the dissent, this framing doesn't matter. 2, this counterpoint scoops. Obviously, the entirety of the affirmative. The only argument they have is the ethics outweighs, and any chance that the counterpoint doesn't solve the case. They conceded that they don't solve the basis stuff because that's obviously, and we obviously solve way better than the affirmative, which means they can't go for substance debate. The counterpoint does all of the affirmative, and they don't solve most of it. They just conceded all causes we found in their evidence, which means they probably just going to go for theory, which you should err and neg on. They conceded drop the other 2.
Okay, 5. It'll just be the executive counterplan, textual functional competition. Is anyone not ready? Just so you're good. Okay. Frame your battle through the fact that there are 0 reasons why his types of counterplans that do all part of the acts are a good idea. That was outlined inside of the 2AC block, which said that counterplans have to do something different than the plan, i.e. that they cannot just do the entirety of the plan, such as getting rid of counter-drug and drug interdiction, military aid to authoritarian regimes in Latin America and the Caribbean, and they also have to remove words from the plan text, which their counterplan does not. But either way, all we have to do is prove that they don't meet one of these standards, and we're going for the functional competition standard. They've conceded that it results in the best clash if it says and does something different than the act because it represents a genuine opportunity cost and avoids the nonsense of things like consult counterplans and word picks, which justifies purging the counterplan because it gets rid of competition. The line-by-line arguments. Their argument, they said textual competition is a bad metric. We've made an argument as to why you are not functionally competitive because you result in the action of the plan. The result in the action of the plan, you have to do something different than the plan. Even if you go through a different process, that is not distinct from making a different, that is not distinct from the end result of the plan, which is where our arguments are, which is where our arguments lay. Our argument is that you justify things like infinite process counterplans, and you justify things like infinite process counterplans, and that do the same thing as the act, but just say it differently, or infinite consult counterplans that just say have tons of say yes cards, and all of these are not things that were responded to inside of the NR. In order for them to have won this debate, they would have to prove what process counterplans, consult counterplans, every single one of those are good models for debate, which they've conceded or not, because it does not allow us to have any form of clash, because we functionally have to date ourselves where the only deficit we get are based off of agents, but not about the actual result of the plan itself. They have 0 defense as to why doing the entirety of the plan is a good idea. Our argument is that it means that there is 0 clash that occurs between us, and we never have a discussion over the actual responses of military aid. But line by line, they say textual competition is bad. No, it's not about textual competition. It's a question of exactly if you do the same thing as the plan. They say also that we get to respond to their textual competition bad arguments. You should have both textual and functional competition in order to avoid things like debate travels, which prevent cheesy word picks like counterplans that do the act, that replace president for the executive. And it most clearly mirrors the real world. Policymakers don't worry about exact text when initially expressing the idea. They look at implementation first and see if that's a viable idea. Our point is that you should also use functional competition in order to be able to evaluate whether or not the plan is a good idea. They say that it results in plans with more things in the plan text, and our point is that yes, having more things in the plan text is a violation of textual competition, but more importantly, it proves that you are not functionally competitive because you do the exact same thing as a plan, but are essentially just plan plus by adding on all of these different planks, because you get rid of military aid overall. The severance argument, no, this is not a severance, because our point is that as long as you do something like the 1AC, and as long as you result in an end policy that gets rid of counter-drug and drug interdiction to military aid, then that is what establishes competition, not whether or not the plan includes things like Congress, which proves that we are not an example of severance. Even still, severance good in this instance because we've given reasons as to why process counterplans don't allow for the kinds of clash, and they have not given any reasons as to why process counterplans are a good thing, because or why they allow for any type of genuine clash. Debate.
Thanks, Rex.